Good evening. I will now call to order the Chesterfield Township Planning Commission meeting on May 7th, 2024. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. I will call the roll. Mr. Miller is here. Mr. LaBelle?
Here.
Mr. Demink is excused. Mr. Leonard?
Here.
Mr. Renault?
Here.
Mr. Jaworski?
Here.
Mr. Klinowski?
Here.
Mr. Carr?
Here.
Mr. Brokart?
Here.
Approval of the minutes of prior meetings. I will make a motion to approve the minutes of April 16th, 2024.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Miller, supported by Mr. Renault. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Approval of the agenda. I will make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Miller, supported by Mr. Renault. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Public comments, 3-minute time limit if you want to speak. Sign in at the podium.
Gentlemen, how you doing? First time coming here. I've been a member of Chesterfield for about 4 years, and I'm just coming here because I just kind of want to see what's going on. It seems like a lot of the things that the planning committee or the Chesterfield is doing in general doesn't follow the master plan, which I thought was kind of like the guidebook of what we're trying to do as a community. Case in point, this Chick-fil-A signage deviation came up, and I thought maybe it'd be worth coming to see what the Brain Trust actually comes up with about whether we approve something like this, because we're already taking an intersection that is probably one of the worst in Macomb County. We added a restaurant that's going to make it even more congested. That's strike one, right? And strike two is, why don't we hold them accountable and not make it an eyesore on all the other people in the community who didn't want this building to begin with, right? And then we definitely don't want it in our face with a 20-foot sign. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. And additionally, we're not holding anybody else accountable. We're not holding the cannabis shop that was also not part of the master plan, or the multiple self-storage units that are not part of the master plan. So that's really all I want to say. I just want to see what really goes on and how decisions are made, and, you know, kind of report back to the community what I can do. But I appreciate you having me here.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name's James Locke. I live on Sutton here in Chesterfield, and I am opposed to this sign up for review, J24-0198, 20-foot sign. The criteria is this what the township public wants or needs? Does it benefit us? I don't think we're that blind that we need a 20-foot sign to tell us where a sandwich place is. You know, this is getting ridiculous. I mean, people come into here, they want to start a business, they go to the township hall here, they get the information, they know what the building codes are, they know what kind of building they can put up, they know what the signage is. Why do we have to have all these variances all the time after time after time? Every business comes in here, they want to make a variance. You know, it's not necessary. If they don't like our ordinance, If they don't like the way our township is and what the people of this township want, they can go somewhere else and put up their business. You know, as the gentleman said, we have a master plan. If we're not gonna follow the master plan, why did we spend all that money for it? It's there for us to follow. You know, I mean, these big businesses come in here, they give their contributions to politicians. Politicians said, don't worry, we'll get it through. You know, and that's what they do. I know this board, we're not elected officials, no, but every one of you have been appointed by an elected official. You didn't get on this board just because, you know, oh, I want to be on that board. Hey, I'm on that board. No, you've been appointed by an elected official, and he knows exactly what your feelings are, how you're going to vote for him or what. You know, I'll give you guys an out. If you're scared of these big businesses and you don't want to rock the boat, kick it on down the road. Let the full board do it. Let them make decision. You know, you guys made a decision on that big billboard down on 20 Mile Road. You guys got kicked in the ass for it. They had already sold you out before you even got it. Turn the tables, give it back to them, let them handle this. Let them, they're the ones that got the money. They're the ones that got the money from companies, so let them make the decision. You know, this is getting ridiculous. Month after month, that's all it is. Give these businesses changes that they want. Don't consider what the people want or the way this township looks. It's looking terrible. How many chicken sandwich places do we need, you know? We already gave them
Time's up.
$500,000 for the road change. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Public hearings, there is none. Regular agenda, our Secretary Rick will do the items in the reviews.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item A is sign review J24-0198. Chick-fil-A, the address is 27322 23 Mile Road. They're requesting a variance on Chesterfield Township Ordinance, Chapter 52, Signs, Section 52-6, permanent signs for freestanding sign. The applicant is here this evening. So the first thing we're going to talk, there's two items on our agenda this evening. The first one is the freestanding sign. As we all know, there's a few things going on here with this freestanding sign. Our ordinance does allow a monument sign, freestanding sign to be 8 feet tall. They're proposing a 20-foot tall sign. The freestanding sign shall not exceed 64 square feet. They're proposing 89.3 square feet, and which also has to include the changeable copy portion of the sign. And the changeable copy portion of the sign is allowed to be up to 33% of the total allowable sign area, which it is 21.12 square feet of the 64 square feet. Would the applicant like to address the board?
Can you push the button?
There's a button on the bottom of your microphone, down on the base. There it is.
There you go. How are you? So I am Jason Letzkus. I am from Midway Signs. We're the installers for the signage for Chick-fil-A, not the manufacturers. The manufacturer is a different company that we're working with to get the signs up for Chick-fil-A. The variance request is for two reasons at this intersection. Number one reason being their restaurants are so popular, there'll be so much traffic that when you have people slamming on their brakes, trying to figure out where this new restaurant is if they're not familiar. If there's some local people that are familiar, be easy for them. Not everyone is going to be familiar with where this restaurant is. To give you an idea of how popular they can be when they open, for the first 6 months in Traverse City, when we put the Chick-fil-A up there, they had to ask, their sheriff department had to ask for the neighboring county's sheriff department to help with traffic control. They literally had a mile and a half of cars backed up on the road. So if you have that kind of traffic, people don't know why they're stopped. You don't have a sign, you can't see it. You have people trying to stop in the left-hand lane, move over, causing accidents. It's been enough of an issue that I do have a letter I can leave with you and get some copies from Chick-fil-A, from their corporate offices. And they do worry about liability. Somebody says, hey, I got in an accident. I couldn't get into your restaurant. I couldn't see the sign. I had no idea. I come up at the last minute and had to make an abrupt lane change to try to get in. I mean, whether that's a liability issue, that's for attorneys to decide, but I do know that Chick-fil-A worries about that. Their other concern is looking through the area. They sent their reps through the area. There is a Chase Bank. It's got a 20-foot sign. There is a Target. It's got a sign that's 20 foot roughly. There's Walgreens. Has a sign that's above the 8-foot limit. They would like to be competitive. And there's a White Castle restaurant also that has a sign that's above the 8-foot. So that is their argument for the 20-foot sign. As far as the square footage goes, they bring in experts that survey the area and decide what the proper square footage should be for traffic that is going 45 miles per hour. To be able to see it far enough back at 45 miles per hour, this is the square footage and the height that they've determined that would be the best for the traffic. So you don't have people slowing down in the middle of the road trying to find the Chick-fil-A restaurant. Sure, we have phones. You can tell us where new locations are. They're not always updated for the first 6 months or even a year. And even at that, you shouldn't be looking at your phone while you're driving. So you need a sign. The signage for these businesses is their number one source of advertisement. That is all I have for the pylon sign.
Thank you. Comments from the commission? Mr. Brokart?
Thank you for coming in tonight. Will Chick-fil-A be putting a sign or signs up on I-94 alerting drivers that at this next exit or in 2 exits, there's a Chick-fil-A?
As far as I'm aware, they have no intentions of doing that.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Renaud?
Question for Jonathan. Could you tell us when the sign ordinance was updated to limit it to the 8 feet? I don't recall that date.
The ordinance was updated in 2020 with the new standard, and existing non-conforming signs have to be in compliance by March of 2027.
That's what I was looking for, thank you. So to your point, yes, there are signs in the township that are 20 feet tall, but that is simply because they were put up before our ordinance was updated. So to say that someone would like, that a company would like to have the same as other businesses, at what point do we get everyone in compliance? So that's where I got to tell you, 20 foot's that's a really big ask. I just don't see it. And quite honestly, if you think anyone, with the amount of traffic that's going there, I'm not really sure you want to advertise with a 20-foot sign saying, hey, we're the reason for the traffic backup. Don't think that would go over well with the residents as well. But thank you for the clarification, Jonathan. That's all I had.
Mr. Carr?
Yeah, unfortunately, I do also disagree with the signage variances because for the fact that we did update this 4 years ago. We have let some variances go by, but that's because they were existing businesses that had special circumstances to their site. In this case, this is a greenfield site that, you know, to me, Chick-fil-A knew they were purchasing and installing a Chick-fil-A, and in all honesty, I don't think a sign is gonna make any difference. People are gonna either go to the Chick-fil-A or they're not. The sign's not going to, I think, make or break that. So from my perspective, I think the variances are a little excessive to what I think is, that we can approve here, but those are just my initial thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Jaworski?
Yeah, I too agree. Chick-fil-A knew the rules when they decided to come here. Traffic is nothing that we can control at any corner. We took a lot of flack with the Chick-fil-A, but at this case, no, we can't approve that.
Thank you. Mr. Klinowski?
Yeah, I would agree. That's a lot of difference from the ordinance, and we would, in effect, weaken our ordinance as a result of this.
Thank you. Mr. Leonard?
Yeah, a couple of things. If the bigger sign is being requested for people to know where the restaurant is because of traffic and it's to control traffic, I don't think that's gonna help. Everybody's gonna know it's there, and that sign is just way too much sign there. And I don't think they're gonna have any problems filling that place up with cars. And I just don't see this meeting any special circumstances. All the other restaurants that are around, if they're new, they're gonna have to conform, and if they're existing with the bigger sign, they're gonna have to drop them. We dealt with McDonald's a few years back. They had a sign that was, you could see it from the expressway. It was like 60 feet tall, or it was crazy. And you could drive by there now, they got the little arches. I mean, it's, you know, this is something that, what happened years ago is trying to be kind of cleaned up and some continuity. So we love having new businesses here. We have turned some away, and a couple members from the audience mentioned that we approve everything. We don't. We turn some things down because we don't feel that they fit. We're all residents here. We all live here. And the only reason we're appointed by somebody from the township is because that's just the chain of command. Anybody in the township could apply to be on the planning commission or the ZBA or any other committees. And I would encourage that if anybody wants to do that. But I just think it's way too much for this business and location.
Thank you. Mr. LaBelle?
I too don't see any kind of a practical difficulty here. At this point, I'd like to make a motion if it's possible.
Sure.
Unless you want to speak.
No, I'm good.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to deny sign review J24-0198. And I'm making this, this motion based upon, first of all, as I just stated, I really don't see any practical difficulty with the need for this size of a sign. There's nothing unusual about the piece of property. There's 5 criteria that we have to follow in order to grant a variance. A is there's special circumstances or conditions such as existence of buildings topographically, vegetarian, structures, lot dimensions. That just doesn't exist in this situation. The lot is right on 23 Mile Road. There's no issues at all there. Strict enforcement of the provisions of this chapter would serve no useful purpose. Again, that doesn't apply here. So that's 2 out of the 5. And in order to meet, or in order to grant a variance, all 5 of these have to apply, and they don't. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to deny.
We have a motion by Mr. LaBelle, supported by Mr. Miller. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to deny.
Item B is sign review J24-0198 is Chick-fil-A at 27322 23 Mile Road. They're proposing 3 wall signs. I'm sorry, there's 3 wall signs, one in the back of the building. These wall signs, we have, again, our ordinance requires that, or allows the square footage of that sign to be 1 square foot per linear feet of the building frontage, which is 48.1, almost 49 inches. I'm sorry, 49 feet. They're proposing 101 square feet on signs C1, C2, and B1. As you know, as in the past, B2, which is in the back of the building, that's exempt from this requirement, so we're only talking about the 3 signs in the front and the sides. Again, the applicant is here this evening, and if you'd like to speak on that.
See if I can do a little better this time. C1 and C2, the issue we were having with those being considered square footage. The sign is not, if we take the sign that's 8 foot by 8 foot, okay, we draw a box around it, we can say that's what, 64 square feet. We've drawn a box around this entire script, but there's so much dead space in between it, it's just script. So the whole thing isn't a sign. The width or the stroke of the script on here is gonna be 4 to 5 inches, depending on the manufacturing at the time. So you have all this dead space in between the letters, the inside of the, inside of the chicken logo. That's not signage. We're coming up with this large square foot signage area by drawing a box around it. So it appears to have, by the numbers, to have more square footage of signage than it actually does. If I was an engineer, we could probably figure out exactly how many square foot of signage that is. I'm not an engineer, I hang signs. And to make it easy, you draw a box around the entire sign and do square footage that way, okay? We're requesting the variance because of that little technicality there, right? We're drawing a box around something that isn't actually a sign and requesting more square footage. The sign that's behind you is, if we were to go from the top to the bottom of it, is roughly, what, 4 foot by 4 foot, 16 square foot, but it's not, because we have the little cutouts around the circle, edges that are tapered in. That part of it's not actually signage, but if we just draw a box around the whole thing, 16 square foot. That's the situation.
Do you mind if I interrupt you for a moment here and just ask a question then? So I'm looking at the drawing for C1 and C2, and you've got two dimensions there. You've got one called live area and you've got one called overall area. Are you referring to the live area as to what you're referring to?
So the live area is, if you can see that box that's being filled around the I-C-K onto the A in the end, and then there's the chicken logo that's taller. There's a box around that that's, you should have the copy that's got a red box around it. That's the live area. Okay. Live area is referring to, it's an old term in signage from when we had neon. So that area was live.
Okay, so that's 38 square feet.
That's correct.
Okay, so 38 times 2, correct me if I'm wrong, is like 76 square feet.
That's correct.
Okay, so you're way over the ordinance right there.
Well, but that's not all signage, because you have so much dead space inside that box. If you look inside the K, for instance, you have the circle inside the K, that's not signage.
Can I ask a question? So you're not charging for that? When building the sign, you're not charging for that section of the sign?
No, I'm not charging for that, because we're only
You're printing. It's
we're only
red.
making the stroke 4 inches wide. That's the only aluminum that we're gonna be making into a sign.
Mr. Palin, can you clarify that real quick there? And I know that you can describe our ordinance better than I can.
There's a provision in the ordinance for determining sign area. Sign area shall constitute the entire area within a rectangle or sum of rectangles enclosing the extreme limits of writing, representation, emblem, or any figure of similar character regardless of the opacity or missing space within the extreme limits. Any single row of text shall be grouped into one continuous rectangle. And there is diagrams in the ordinance as well that show, you know, there is times where we apply it where there's a logo and then text, and those are separate rectangles for one sign. But in this case, it's one row of text, and that's how the measurement is calculated.
Thank you, Mr. Palin. That's the way that I understand it as well. So we're right back to the sign being 38 square feet. Next argument.
That's the only argument I have. We're requesting a variance because if we were to make this script, to make that box small enough to meet the sign ordinance, the script becomes so small you're not going to see it. Now, I mean, if we were to make this smaller and we could light it up brighter, we could do all kinds of things to attract more attention, but then that doesn't look very aesthetically appealing. We want to make the building look good. That's my job, is to make the building look good. We don't want to do what I've seen other businesses do to get around this and have somebody putting ridiculous lights in windows. We see that at gas stations a lot. We're asking for a variance for some reasonable folks to look at this being not a box, it's a script. We're drawing the box around it because that's what the ordinance says, how we calculate square footage. It's how the sign industry calculates square footage. But in the real world, there's not 38 square feet of signage there. Just like if I were to write my name on this piece of paper, if I were to sign this piece of paper, I can't say my signature is that whole piece of paper. My signature is just this. And that's the same situation. We're making a script on the wall.
Okay, thank you.
Technically, I do.
Okay.
Well, I don't have a question, just more of, I guess, although aesthetics are subjective, you know, from a aesthetic architectural perspective, I do understand our ordinance, and obviously I do concur with, you know, obviously having those standards, which is again why the freestanding sign I think was a little ridiculous. But I will say aesthetically, looking at the building itself and looking at the signage, I also don't think that this is over the top in regards to signage that we've seen in the past. Don't really care how we calculate square footages, but just saying aesthetically itself. I mean, I'm not quite sure why we need a Chick-fil-A emblem on the back of the building or on the side of the building where the drive-through is, because, you know, that one's over a canopy. I mean, nobody really can see those. So I don't know, to me, there's some flexibility there if those are even required. But I don't really think that Chick-fil-A, from my perspective, I think it's tastefully done. I don't think it's much to ask to have a Chick-fil-A, you know, script on the front of the building and a script over the main entrance of the building where people walk in. I don't think that that's not tastefully done. So from my perspective, I mean, I'm open to it. I don't think it's, you know, the script portion, I don't think it's aesthetically unpleasant to look at, so I don't think it's over the top. But the other two signs, I think, can, you know, are up for a discussion, because I don't think the placement of them are very value added. And since you're already over the ordinance, those might be some of the sacrificial lambs that you can offer up.
Thank you. Mr. Jaworski?
I have nothing additional to add, other than that we have an ordinance for a reason, that's all.
Mr. Klinowski?
Yeah, nothing further from me.
Mr. Leonard?
I tend to agree a little bit with Mr. Carr. Looking at the building, it is tastefully done. It's not, if it was a big box where everything was all filled in and it was right there in front of you, it'd have a whole different look. But, you know, this, you're seeing the brick show through, you know, pretty much the whole sign. With that being said, sorry, I didn't have my mic on. With that being said, a few inches off of the dimensions on this would get close to fixing the square footage. You know, a couple inches in the height, a couple inches in the width, the overall width. I mean, all of that could be reworked and have the proportions still be fine. I agree also with the logo sign of the chicken. You could shrink those down if you still wanted them there. I think there's room to make this work, but everything's just over. But the text signage of the Chick-fil-A doesn't look bad. It actually looks nice on the building, so I'm kind of on the fence. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. LaBelle. Anything further?
Well, and I do agree with Mr. Leonard and Mr. Carr. What can you do? Can you shrink down? I mean, you know, the main elevation that you see on 23 Mile Road, I agree. It should probably be that 38 square feet. I agree with that. But on the sides of the building and over top of the canopy, is there anything that you can do to shrink those signs down so we can get closer to our ordinance?
The script becomes very hard to shrink down anymore, because if the manufacturer starts getting this too small, you have to have a way to attach this properly to the wall. I've been hanging signs for 34 years. 34 years. I've never had one fall down. I've never had one hurt somebody. My competitors have. And it's because they've tried to do something that's not a good idea. And if we start making this too much smaller, or you shrink it down, you got to also make the stroke. We call it the stroke. That's the width of the script. You got to make that narrower. You can start running into problems because you have to have lights inside this. It's got to light up, so you got to have LEDs. Is it possible to scale it down? Yes, it is. Is it possible to do that safely? Of course it is. I wouldn't do it if it isn't. Is it going to make the building look any better? If it's scaled down, it's not going to make it look any better. What it's going to do is just make Chick-fil-A harder to find. It's going to make it harder to be seen. It's going to put them at a disadvantage to other businesses that are going to do things that don't look as nice to get around the ordinance. That's what happens.
Okay. Would you like me to postpone making a decision this evening, give you an opportunity to see what you can do? Or would you like us just to make a motion this evening?
I can talk to the manufacturer and see if we can scale this down any. I think they would be willing, they being Chick-fil-A corporate, willing to give up the box sign on the front of the building to have the scripts be the full size. That would be B1, I believe. They were questioning why B2 is not considered a sign and where they're allowed to have that, but they're not allowed to have B1, which is exactly the same.
Okay, then I'll make a motion to postpone making a decision this evening, giving you and Chick-fil-A, but I'm gonna make it very clear, at least from my point of view, you need to get closer to the ordinance than almost triple. I mean, you're really exceeding. And I do agree that, I mean, the signs, they look nice. They've done a really nice job with the script. It's a nice sign. But, and there is a lot of building frontage there, but you gotta get closer to our ordinance. Okay, so Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to postpone making a decision on sign review J24-0198.
Support. We have a motion by Mr. LaBelle, supported by Mr. Carr. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes.
Are we putting any kind of time for them to come back, or they'll just come back? Do we need a specific or so
We don't
many
have to be
meetings?
specific on this. I don't think we have to be specific on this.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Item C is gasoline service station, site plan 2024-05, previously approved site plan, special land use 2023-04, C3 4.61 acres, northwest corner of 23 Mile Road and Sass Road. The parcel ID is 15-09-15-300-049. The address is 31959 23 Mile Road. We postponed making a decision back on April 16th, and there was a number of items that we asked them to go back to the drawing board on and change. They have done so. One of them was the loading zone. We asked them to identify a loading zone. They have. The building material, we asked them to, to apply more brick to the building. They've put brick all the way across the front. They've done that. They provided a photometric plan that was requested. Then lastly, there was a question of how to get the pedestrians off of 23 Mile Road into the site rather than going on down Sass Road, and they have provided a path of ingress and egress from the site for pedestrians, bicycles, people walking. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to now approve with the revisions that have been set in place for gasoline service station site plan 2024-05.
We have a motion by Mr. LaBelle, supported by Mr. Miller. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
I would say that we're gonna have a training coming up, that we're currently discussing, probably looking at either June or July. So if there's any of you that, we definitely want you all to participate. So if there's a date that doesn't work for any of you, let us know and we'll try to make sure we can get everybody at that meeting. So probably June or July, so you don't have to tell me now, but shoot me an email if you know there's one you're not gonna be at, and we'll go from there. Yeah. Yeah, we wanna do it at a regular scheduled meeting, so we'll try and make it happen too when there's not a lot on an agenda, so.
I'm all set for tonight, thank you.
Yeah, just a couple of things. One, to the two gentlemen in the crowd, I want to thank you for coming in. I've actually been a resident for a little over 20 years now, but that is, to that point, I wanted to get involved, and you don't know until you get here. And if all you do is read the social media pages about how terrible we are, you're going to be disappointed. I've given up reading those. But coming here and seeing what we actually do is worth the time and investment, because we don't always agree. We don't always vote for everything, and sometimes the board overturns us. It happens. But yes, and to your point, we are appointed, but the only reason I got appointed was because I pestered the previous supervisor for 18 months to put me on this board. So it took a long time for me pestering him to finally get up here. But anyone, and I encourage anyone to run for it, because we typically have openings as well. But thank you for coming in and participating.
Thank you. Mr. Carr?
Nothing.
Mr. Jaworski?
Yeah, I too wanted to thank you to come out. We need more of this healthy debate. Very similar to his circumstances. I asked to be on this board, and I was appointed by the former township supervisor. So there's no politician within the ranks that sway or have any decision or any weight on my decision. I came to the township. The reason I came was I wanted sidewalks. I couldn't figure out why I live a stone's throw away and couldn't access this beautiful park that we have at the Township Center. You couldn't get there but other than by car. So in the process of the township planning, that was a requirement by the state in order to get funding, or the master plan. So that was a requirement, and is that correct, Jonathan? We have to file that?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So we have to file that with the state in order to be eligible for funding. So we had to put that together. We had some really good participation. I would say 80 to 90% of the residents wanted sidewalks. The one thing, I've been on this board 7, going on 8 years, you're going to find out 90% of the residents want sidewalks, the 10% of the people that are stopping it. So that's politics. That's how everything works. The only way you're going to make things happen in a positive way is to show up just like you are, understand the process, have a healthy debate, and share your concerns. Because not everybody, I mean, politicians, they're not all bad. This board is one of the best group of guys I've ever worked with. They put a lot of hard work into everything they do, and the decisions we make, a lot of them have to do with legal, a lot of them have to do with the master plan, but in circumstances, there has to be variance, or we wouldn't have to be here. So, again, thanks for coming out. I'm not trying to make this a debate and go back and forth. We need this healthy conversation, and I hope people are watching this. Hope Facebook picks this up, and they don't. I mean, because we are getting slammed on Facebook. And the only time some people show up, residents show up, is when it's in their backyard. Nobody else shows up until it impacts them. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Mr. Klinowski? Nothing. Mr. Leonard?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, even though Mr. Jaworski really worked hard and many months to get on, we still couldn't keep him off the board, so, you know.
We tried.
Yeah, he's still here. Yeah, we do make a good effort at making a good decision. But there's a caution with that, is the township gets sued if we make a bad decision out of feelings. We have to make decisions based on all the ordinances and the criteria, just like tonight with the signs. You know, there was 5 reasons, and they couldn't meet it. Now, for a business like that, to give them a little bit of help, it's not really going outside the parameters of the ordinance, but we got to control it. It was brought up that the Chick-fil-A signage itself, from the road, looking at it, whether it was a few inches smaller, probably not going to be noticeable. The other 2 logo signs, get rid of them, make them small. So there's room, and there's a happy medium, and I think we're going to get to something that works. A lot of companies are coming in here, putting out a lot of money to put their businesses here, and we don't always, make it just a slam dunk that they're going to come in and do whatever they want. So hopefully that was kind of noticed, and people that have been watching the meetings or come to the meetings, they've seen the way that we function, and I think we're pretty responsible. But our hands are tied on some things that we just have to, we just have to allow things if they meet all the criteria. And so that happens too. But yeah, thanks for coming out. And the other reason that some residents come out, unfortunately, we don't see them on an ongoing basis, once a month or whenever, is there's an election coming up. And some people just like to show up and for whatever reasons, get some recognition to run for office. And hopefully their motives are much deeper than just coming out, every 4 years to stir the pot, to maybe get on a ballot or something. None of us have ever thought about running. So anyways, nope. We come and go, and we enjoy what we do. And it's growth. We're all going to live with this and our kids for many years. Just like when we came on, there was a lot of things, like with the lack of sidewalks, things that we didn't see. That's like, well, why not? So there's reasons why we got up here and got involved. we were sitting out there at one time, kind of checking things out, so anyways, thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. LaBelle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too want to thank you guys for coming. We do appreciate your input. Two things this evening. I'm looking for volunteers for pre-planning. Mr. Leonard and Mr. Burkhardt. And the second thing is I want to do this in a very diplomatic way. You know, in the past, I've complained about, I've made mention that we approve or we work hard to get brick on a building, we get the aesthetics of the building to look nice. The building's going up and there's mechanical units out in front of the building on 23 Mile Road, which just burns me because we went through all the trouble to make that building look nice. Now I'm going down Gratiot the other day and they're putting a building up, and on the face of the building on Gratiot, there's a CT cabinet. CT cabinet's a metering device that us electricians use. It's a large gray box. They ran conduit out of the top of this CT cabinet. It's a current transformer. On the top of this CT cabinet, they go across the face of the building on Gratiot, and they go around the corner for the Detroit Edison strike. We work hard to get these buildings to look nice, to have brick, to have the right material on the front of it, and then they're monkeying it up with equipment. I think that we need to work harder in making sure, and maybe it's my fault, it is my fault that I'm not saying, you know, I'm approving your design, your elevation, don't deviate from that. And maybe that's what I need to do in the future, or all of us need to do in the future, to say, you know what, don't deviate from that, so that when the electrician comes and he hangs that CT cabinet in the front of the building and say, nope, you're deviating from what was approved, you gotta move it. That's my bitch. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. LaBelle. Thank you for coming.
Can that be counted as signage?
If there's nothing else, I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:47. Support. We have a motion by Mr. Miller, supported by Mr. Renault.